Hi everyone, Heather here with astrologywithheather.com, and I am back with another weekly forecast. This one is for Monday, March 22nd, all the way through to Sunday, March 28th of 2021. And this week is a wild week in the astrology. There is a lot going on. It's very chaotic. And this is a week where when I was looking at the astrology for the year ahead in terms of the springtime, which is otherwise a much nicer energy, I was concerned about this week. And I even discussed it with my cosmic community members at the New Moon Gathering and voiced some of my concerns about what might be happening around this time period. And collectively, we've seen a lot of those things that I discussed playing out already. The build up to this week's energy has already been quite intense. And so the intensity isn't actually at its peak yet. And so this week is when the intensity peaks, not just on a collective level, but on an individual level as well. And so in today's forecast, or this week's forecast, I should say, I'm going to help you guys understand what's going on, why it's going on, and how it's going to impact you personally. But before we get into that, I just want to mention for those of you who are new to my channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss an astrology update. I do a new weekly forecast every single Saturday at 9 a.m. Mountain time. And so you don't want to miss that. And even if you're not new to my channel, the way that I structure my videos is that I always start with a general weekly forecast for about 5 to 10 minutes. Don't skip this. This is going to give you important context that will be needed in order to understand your more personalized reading when I get to the forecast for all 12 signs. Speaking of which, when I get to the forecast for all 12 signs, make sure you listen to your rising sign, your sun sign, and your moon sign to get a more holistic overview of the energy for your week ahead. This rising sign is going to be the most predominant energy. The sun sign will be secondary, and the moon sign is important to listen to as well, although this is typically an energy that's more internalized and subjective. Finally, at the end of each video, I do a 2 to 3 minute overview of next week's energy so you can be even further ahead in planning and understanding what's coming up for you astrologically. And so moving on from that, let's get into the energy of this week because it is really crazy. So the first thing that I want to talk about here is the nodal activation. And so there is an energy of faded transition, of faded new beginnings, but also an energy of confusion, misinformation, disinformation. There's an energy of conflict, especially when it comes to verbal conflict. And that's what I was discussing more so in the cosmic community. I did touch on some of the other potential energies that could come up, but one of the things we have seen when we've had Mars energy in the mutable signs, and especially when there's a Pisces Neptune activation involved, we've seen shootings and things of that nature, violence on a collective level, and that's been going on for many years now. And so that's something that was, activated already. Hopefully it won't be activated again in a similar way this week. I'm thinking that the build up to the peak is probably going to be, the most intense period. And it usually is, right? It's like there's an energy. It's like a volcano almost, or like something boiling. It's like it starts to sizzle, it starts to boil, and then it reaches its peak, and then you kind of turn off the water, and then you get to kind of pour it into the pot, and it's calmed down by then, right? So we're kind of reaching that boiling point, and it's kind of like that anticipation to the peak, but the peak is almost here. So basically what's happening is on Tuesday and on Wednesday, we're having this energy of Mercury in the sign of Pisces, which is starting to come into a conjunction with Neptune. That'll be exact next week. Coming into a square with Mars, which is in a conjunction with the North Node. So what does this all mean? Basically, when Mercury's in Pisces, it's a little bit more challenging to get the truth. It's a little bit more challenging to understand things or see things clearly. And so on an individual level, that might be an issue in one form or another. And we talked about that a little bit last week in last week's forecast. The other thing that's happening is Mars is in a conjunction with the North Node in Gemini. Mars is an energy that rules violence. It's an energy that rules guns and things like that, but it's also an energy that rules separation, divisiveness, volatility, be dispute, discord, conflict in general. And when it's in a square with Mercury, a lot of the conflict, especially on an individual level that we'll be seeing, is going to be verbal. So it's not necessarily going to be physical conflict for most individual people. It's going to be more verbal conflict or misinformation or lies or deception, or unintentional lies and deception can be a big part of this energy too, because we're not thinking clearly, we're not speaking as clearly as we might otherwise, and there's going to be a lot of different variations of the narrative, not just outwardly, but like, in our own personal lives. There'll be a lot of different variations of the narrative going on here. So it's going to be hard to know who to trust, who to believe, what's right and what's not, because there are not just a lot of different variations of the narrative. And it's not necessarily just that it's like, who do I trust, or what do I trust, or what's the right choice? It's like, what do I want to choose? Because there might be a lot of different options, and the answer to that question might be rather confusing to sort out. And so that's how this is going to be impacting us individually. But this is the in-between space, in between eclipses. And so this is a nodal activation in between eclipses. And that's, huge. This is a karmic energy. This is a time when fate steps in, where things are turned upside down, where we face challenges that cause us to have to jump into a new direction pretty actively and pretty quickly with this Mars energy, and with that Mercury Pisces, Mercury Neptune confusion in the mix, and with that Gemini energy where there's a multitude of options. We might jump into the wrong direction, or we might misstep or make a mistake where we'll have to kind of come back and deal with that when we come into the next eclipse season this summer. And so you do want to make sure that you're staying grounded, that you're being discerning, that you're not just jumping in impulsively because it's like, right now it feels like this is the thing and oh my goodness, I'm just going to do it. You also want to make sure that you're not being misled. You also want to make sure that you're not misleading yourself, because that could be a big part of this energy too. And so there's a lot going on here and a lot up in the air. If that wasn't enough, Venus, which has been combust, so Venus or any planet becomes debilitated when it's within 16 degrees of the sun, but especially when it's within 8 degrees of the sun, except when it goes Cazimi, which is actually what's going to be happening on Friday at 12:57 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. So you're going to have to translate that to your time zone. And that Venus Cazimi period, that one little moment in time for just a couple of hours before and after, is a time where relationships, issues pertaining to finance, to pleasure, to joy, to self-worth, these things can all go a little bit more smoothly. Beauty too, and aesthetics. This is a one little nugget of time here where the awkwardness of Venus conjunct Chiron can be translated into healing in a relationship, or healing on a financial level, or healing on the level of self-worth, or healing on the level of beauty and aesthetics in one way or another. So maybe, a skin issue or something in that Aries placement, maybe you have some sort of like inflammation of the skin. This would be a time where you could get answers or find a treatment more easily and more clearly, right? So these are all different things that you can do with that energy. But Friday is also the same day that we have that Mars conjunction to the North Node exact. So it's still a really volatile energy that's building up, and that's still going to be peaking at that time. It's kind of like we have to jump into something that's been building for a while, that's faded, that's karmic, that we're revisiting from the past. So that's going to be part of this configuration. I will say that the full moon on Sunday. So this is kind of where the energy really peaks and really releases. It's good and bad. So it's making a kite formation with Saturn and Mars. So it's alleviating some of that martial energy and providing an outlet for that Mars energy. And I do like that Mars will be in sextile, even if it's like a wider sextile with Venus, the Sun, and Chiron in that configuration, which is an exact conjunction at 8 degrees. It's really intense. And I also like that Mars will be in a nice trine with the moon. Saturn will be in a trine with the moon. So there's a grand trine forming in the air signs here. What I don't love is the fact that there's still that Mars Mercury energy. And what I also don't love is that there is a kite formation, because collectively, and this is something that I got from one of my teachers, Lynn Coiner, that once I started paying attention to it, it seems correct. And it's been kind of time and time again. where on a collective level especially, there's some sort of crisis that comes up and the opposition becomes strengthened and intensified. And especially now where there's an opposition between Venus debilitated, right, at its detriment in the sign of Aries in a conjunction with Chiron, both of which are being burned by the sun, which sort of burns away the positive qualities and enhances some of the negative attributes, being highlighted by this full moon. This is a time where our collective wounds will be exposed. This is a time where our individual wounds will be exposed. This is a time where even though there are things that will go very smoothly and we'll see the culmination of that, we'll also be really fixated on the oppositions, the challenges, the people who are maybe standing in our way, the situations that are standing in our way, or maybe where we are standing in our own way when it comes to our ability to heal, to move on from something. So that's the energy of this full moon. And it's really, I mean, obviously it's in Libra, so it's about coming back into balance in one way or another. And the way that that's going to express itself for each of you will be shown in your individual chart, and we'll get to that in just a moment here in the reading for all 12 signs. And so that's pretty much what we're getting into for this week. And I don't really have any specific announcements other than the enrollment for the Cosmic Academy of Astrology is now closed. We're going to be onboarding and welcoming our students this week, which I'm super excited about. Now I get to do the fun part because the more tedious part is over. I get to lecture, I get to teach, I get to connect with you all who have enrolled. So thank you guys so much. The response has been overwhelmingly positive, and I'm so grateful. So that's basically what's going on. The cosmic community is still always there, always open if you want to connect with like-minded people. But other than that, let's get into the forecast for all 12 signs, beginning with Aries. All right. And so for Aries and for Aries rising, you guys are having a little bit more of an intense energy here. So basically for Aries and for Aries rising, this is happening a lot, or it's centering a lot around your sign when it comes to this full moon. And I'm going to be focusing, I'm going to talk about the Mercury-Mars square, obviously, but I'm going to be focusing a little bit more on the full moon energy because that's really where this energy peaks this week. And that's really going to be, I think, a bigger focal point for a lot of people. So let's start with the Mercury square to Mars because that's building at the start of the week. So Mercury square to Mars, this is very literally hitting you in the areas of communication, but it's affecting you a little bit more positively. So there's something going on behind the scenes. There's a secret or a lie or something that's been kept hidden from you in terms of information that might come out into the open this week, or that you have been keeping hidden that you might bring into the open this week. And that's going to be a big part of this energy. And so for Geminis, there could be some arguments, disputes, confusion, misinformation, anger, aggression, divisiveness that comes out of that secret being revealed, whether it's intentional on your end or unintentional on your end, or if it's coming from someone else. However, it's almost like it's like a relief. It's like this was fated. This was meant to happen. This had to come out into the open in order to improve a relationship, a contract, a negotiation, an agreement, or some such thing with somebody else. And so, yes, it's going to be a little confusing. There might be a lot of sides to the story. Yes, there could be a lot of confusions and miscommunications that lead to arguments or at the very least frustration this week, but it's for a purpose and for a reason. And that reason and purpose is likely going to be to help improve your relationships moving forward. So at the start of the week, it's like, oh crap, why is this happening? And by the end of the week, when we reach that full moon energy, it's like, oh, okay. I'm kind of glad that happened, even though it was awkward, or even though it was uncomfortable, or even though it was tense at the time. The energy of the full moon is happening in your 7th house, which is the house of partnerships. So you've been very focused on you, on your needs, on your self-interest, on the things that you need to heal from or heal through, or maybe you've been coming into your own as a healer and helping others in that way. Now's a time where you need to focus more of your energy and attention on the needs of other people specifically, as opposed to your own needs and your own self-development. So that's going to be a big part of this energy for you with the full moon. But it is exposing your wounds, right? So there's something going on here around your body, your appearance, your personality, your persona, your life in general, where you personally feel awkward, or you personally feel vulnerable, or you personally feel ashamed or guilty, or maybe even attacked by others. And that's going to be illuminated this week. And this is a week for you to see that, to understand much better, especially this weekend, what's going on here, and to move on and move past it. So this is where you're going to be able to reach out to others to help you to heal. And this is a great week to communicate, to connect with groups, to connect with friends, to help you to heal any of your own personal wounds about who you are and the way that you show up in the world. For Taurus and for Taurus rising. So for Taurus, this energy, first off, with the Mercury square to Mars, is happening in your 11th and in your second house. So there's something going on here. There could be some lies, some rumors, some gossip going on in your social circle or on social media or something along those lines. That could be kind of volatile or hurtful in some way that you come into this week. Just know that you might not have the whole picture or the full understanding of what was said or why it was said or what's going on there. So before you judge someone, before you jump to conclusions, before you get into that argument, take a step back and give it a day or two if you can, to allow things to unfold so you can see them a lot more clearly, because there are going to be many sides to whatever the story is. And the same thing goes with this need to make some sort of major purchase or to do something involving your finances. It's kind of like, oh my gosh, this is happening right now. I'm so excited. I'm going to jump in. But you're not necessarily seeing your financial situation super clearly right now. And so you're going to want to, if you can, hold off into the weekend. To make that purchase, to make that decision, to jump in and rebalance your budget, to do whatever it is that you want to do that you feel like you need to change or move into with your financial situation, because there is a little bit of there's a lack of clarity there, and there are more options or different options than you might think, or the options that you do have, you might not have that clarity that you need, even if you think you do. The energy of the full moon is happening in your sixth house, which is going to realign your focus onto outward external circumstances, your work, your daily work habits and routines. This could actually be, it's like kind of like you're in a financial pickle, or there's something that you need to do, and then over the weekend you realize that there's something that you need to work on, or that you can work on, that's going to improve your finances, not just in the moment, because it's kind of like you want to make a rash decision, but it's going to be something that you can work on for the long term that will have long-term benefits. So it's about delayed gratification financially and career-wise this week for you, especially into this weekend. The energy here, so there is that Chiron sun energy. So something's being illuminated that's been kept secret when it comes to a past trauma, a past wound, a past vulnerability, a health situation, something involving hospitals or even like rehabilitation centers, where you're kind of seeing it with fresh eyes or seeing it illuminated in a different way for the very first time. And that's going to help you to heal through whatever it is that's coming up for you a lot more easily. For Gemini and for Gemini rising, this energy is happening in your sign, Gemini. And so this first part of the week, and really even into the weekend, because this peaks, on Tuesday, Wednesday, and then also on Friday. There's it's a whole week-long extravaganza of Mars conjunct the North Node and Mercury squaring. So there's going to be some volatility and miscommunication potentially around your work, around your career, around your public image. There could be something exposed about you that's not true, that, you have to kind of fight back on, or there's a lot of confusion around. There could also be misinformation floating around involving a boss or a superior or somebody in a position of power and authority, or you could be given instructions from somebody in that realm that don't make a lot of sense, or that you act on in an incorrect way, and that causes some issues, some arguments, some disputes. Basically, there's something that you want to launch into. It's like you're feeling really fired up to head into a brand new path and a brand new direction in your life in one form or another. And, you might feel like you need to jump in right now, but there's still something unclear or confusing, or there are more options than you really bargained for. And so, there could be a need to wait, especially until this weekend, to make moves, especially when it involves your career and making a big change there. But really, this is all areas of life where there's something coming up that you might not see so clearly. The energy of the full moon is happening in your fifth house, which is the house of children, the house of play, the house of love, the house of romance, the house of fun, the house of joy. And so this is actually a really nice energy, especially kind of coming out of that square and maybe shifting focus from that square and that tension around your career or around your legacy or your public image or whatever it is that comes up for you in that way. This is a time for you to take a step back and have some fun, to play, to enjoy life a little bit more. If you do that, if you take that step back, if you do something really fun and really pleasurable this weekend, then you're going to, first off, get out of that chaos energy, but you're going to be able to see the situation that you're dealing with much more clearly and much more completely. There's something going on here involving shame, guilt, vulnerability, awkwardness when it comes to your social circle or your friends or your relationships with your friends in some way, where there's a wound there that needs to be healed from your past. Maybe you were picked on before, or maybe you felt like the black sheep or the odd man out, and now's a time where you're going to kind of take a step back and see things much more clearly so you can overcome whatever obstacles those are when it comes to your social interactions. This is a great weekend, particularly to learn something new, especially to learn something new that's going to benefit you in the long term, that you're really passionate about and that you love to do. Okay, so for Cancer and for Cancer rising. So for Cancer, the first part of this energy with the square between Mars and Mercury, this is happening in your 12th and in your 9th house. So not quite so bad. So there's something that you've been mulling over or learning about. There's like a new educational pursuit or some sort of new concept or new idea that you've been diving into more recently. And these new ideologies, this new mindset, this new belief system that's been shaping your reality, you might start to come into conflict with that, or something in your reality might start to come into conflict with that, and you might question your beliefs. If that's the case, kind of stick it out and mull it over before you decide on any one path, because this weekend you'll get a little bit more clarity, and next week in particular, you'll get a little bit more clarity. So it could be like there's a lot of options when it comes to a new educational pursuit, like you want to go back to school, but you don't know where to go or what to pursue or something along those lines. Or it could be that you want to travel, but again, you're not exactly sure how to go about it, what to do, where to go, that type of thing. Maybe you want to teach or share information in some way and there's confusion around that. Or if you do share information, people might not understand what you're saying as clearly as they could. So just kind of keep that in mind. Take a step back. Don't jump in too crazy. Make sure that you kind of take your time with it. But the energy of this full moon is kind of pulling you into the home environment. So there's been a lot of energy around healing old wounds, awkwardness, shame, vulnerability, guilt around your public image or around your career even. Maybe you feel ashamed that you haven't accomplished what you set out to accomplish in life, or maybe you feel like you're inferior to other people. Maybe you feel like, maybe there's something that you're really good at, but you feel guilty about sharing it with the world, or you feel awkward about putting yourself out there, even though you know that this is what you need to be doing. This is a time where you're going to kind of pull away from kind of focusing on that, and you're going to come back to your roots. This is a good weekend to focus on home, family, property, spiritual types of endeavors, to kind of pull yourself out of the day-to-day life and tap into your spiritual, emotional base. And that's actually going to help you to see things much more clearly. But this is a good time where something might culminate involving the home, and especially finances related to the home. For Leo and for Leo rising. So for Leos, this energy of the square is happening in your 11th and in your 8th house. Power struggles, arguments, disputes, chaos, misinformation, a lot of kind of weirdness floating around when it comes to your social circle, when it comes to your friends, who you can trust, who you can't trust. You might end up having like arguments, disputes, disagreements with your friends where you feel like you are correct and they should follow your lead. And maybe you're not seeing things quite so clearly, and you need to kind of take that into account. Or maybe you're the one that's spreading the misinformation, the lies, the gossip, and that comes back to haunt you this week, if that is the case. This could also just indicate power struggles in your social circle. This could also indicate power struggles or difficulty or challenge or confusion around finances, especially joint finances in partnership or through debt, taxes, things of that nature this week. So just be careful, triple check everything if there's something that you have to engage with in that area. The full moon, though, is happening in your third house, which is the house of communication. And so there's a big picture idea that you've been learning about or wanting to express or put out there in the world through teaching, through writing, through publishing, through sharing information on a broader scale, or again, through like learning something new. And you're pulling yourself out of that big picture this weekend and getting yourself down to like the nitty gritty and the details. There's a lot of energy around learning new skills. There's a lot of energy around opening your mind to new possibilities and new concepts. But there's something that you have to heal through. It's kind of like this sense that you're not good enough or not smart enough or not like worthy, or there's some sort of guilt, shame, vulnerability, awkwardness around the topic that you want to teach. And so this is where you're going to pull yourself out of that and start to heal. And this is also healing through past wounds, vulnerabilities, insecurities around your belief systems, around religion, maybe for some of you. And this is actually a really great weekend, especially to socialize, to communicate, to connect with other people, one-on-one or in group settings. Even though there's that Mars energy, it's kind of like the issues, by thinking it through, by opening up honest communication, the issues that you're having with friends or social networks or whatever that come up earlier in the week, they can be resolved quite easily for Leos in particular over the weekend if you step kind of out of that and you start to think critically and you start to talk things out one-on-one with people. For Virgo and for Virgo rising. So for Virgos, this square is happening in your 10th and in your 7th house. This is an interesting energy because there's some sort of confusion, misinformation, conflict, fogginess going on involving relationships, one-on-one relationships, but especially business partnerships, contracts, negotiations, agreements, things that cause you to have to sign on the dotted line. It's kind of like there's a lot of different options and you could be misled, especially if that contract is with a boss, a superior, a workplace, a career option, or with somebody in a position of power and authority. There could be arguments and disputes due to miscommunication and confusion or lies and deceit in relationship. It doesn't mean that anyone's lying intentionally, but there's something that someone's not seeing clearly or speaking very clearly that could cause disruption in relationship. This is also a time where you feel really fired up to jump into something with your career, or you have to take action on something new and move into a new direction with your career. It feels fated, it feels karmic, it feels destined, but there's confusion around what this looks like, what the end result is, or ambivalence around it. You'll move past that ambivalence after this week. So if it doesn't have to happen right now, just kind of sit on it, contemplate it, maybe don't make that move. But there could be work-related conflicts this week. So just kind of be aware of that. What does kind of alleviate this is the energy of this weekend. And so there's something that you've been engaging with or a new direction you've been moving into career-wise, or when it comes to your public standing or legacy that you're leaving behind, that could be more lucrative as of this weekend. And so there's been some sort of awkwardness, shame, vulnerability, difficulty, potentially involving past trauma, involving your sort of internal realm, psychological pain, psychological healing that you've been needing to do. But there's also a lot of healing you need to do around your finances and around debt, other people's money, joint finances, your partnership and marriage, and the finances that come through that. This week, and especially this weekend, it's kind of like things culminate. You can pull yourself out of that and you start to reap the benefits, reap the rewards of the work that you've put in your career, in your finances, with getting all of your ducks in a row financially on sort of that opposite side of the spectrum, not through earned income, but through your investments and what you do with your income and the income that you hold with other people. So this is a good weekend to get your ducks in a row when it comes to your career, your work, your day-to-day work routines, and how those make up the bigger picture for your career and also your financial situation and your budget. Okay, for Libra and for Libra rising. So for Libra, this energy is happening in your 6th and in your 9th house at the start of this week with Mercury square Mars. There is some sort of ideological conflict with your beliefs, what you value, your moral or ethical vantage point, and what it is that you are being required or asked to do on a day-to-day level when it comes to your work, when it comes to your day-to-day routines, when it comes to your coworkers, your work environment, or maybe even when it comes to your health. It's kind of like something comes up, you're told to do one thing, but it completely conflicts with your existing beliefs about what's right for your body or what's right for your health. Just know that there are many different options, and that could be the issue. It's kind of like, I don't even know what to choose, what path to choose, who's telling me the truth here. Sit with it if you can. If it doesn't have to happen right this second, if a decision doesn't need to be made right now, then, next week it'll start to get more clear, and maybe even into this weekend a little bit. But the other thing too, there could be conflicts, lies, disputes, arguments, disagreements, issues involving coworkers, employees, office mates, things of that nature that could come up this week. It's like there's so many different narratives and you don't know who to believe. There could be gossip or something like that going around the office. Don't get involved. That's what I would say. Don't get involved unless you have to. And if you have to, wait to speak your piece until after this energy clears up a little bit. You'll have more clarity. The energy of the full moon is happening in your sign, and this is actually quite nice. So you have a grand trine forming in your fifth, your ninth, and in your first house with this full moon, especially if you're a Libra sun, moon, or rising near that 8th degree. It's kind of like there's been some sort of healing you've been needing to do within your relationships and in your relationships. And there's been a lot of focus on the needs of other people, on the healing that needs to be done in that realm. And now the spotlight's back on you. So you get to focus on what you need, want, and desire, what brings you joy, and how to incorporate that more on a practical level. You can start on something new, or something culminates involving a new project, involving education, travel, things of that nature. You're going to get a newfound sense of perspective on whatever interpersonal situations you've been having this weekend. And this is a great weekend to engage in a new learning pursuit, to teach something, or to to learn something new that will benefit you in the long term, that's really fun for you, that will help you to incorporate joy and pleasure into your everyday experience a lot more. Okay, and then for Scorpio and for Scorpio rising. So for Scorpios, this conflict energy is around what brings you joy versus what's maybe viable for you financially. There could be a lot of confusion, a lot of misinformation, a lot of weirdness around your finances or around joint finances in marriage, around debt or a loan or an investment or inheritance or insurance. If you can wait to take action, it might feel like, I need to do this right now. I need to apply for this loan right this second. I need to pay my taxes right at this moment. I need to discuss finances with my partner right now, or invest in this thing. I would say that if you can avoid it, and if you can take a step back and wait to deal with the financials and deal with the paperwork around that, you're going to benefit from it a lot more so. But this energy is hitting Scorpios a little bit more positively. And so if you're a Scorpio sun, moon, or rising anywhere from, let's say, 9 to 15 degrees, Mercury is going to be trining your ascendant sun or moon, and this is going to be benefiting you. You're going to have more clarity than the other parties involved in these financial circumstances. And this is also, maybe you're wanting to finance something that is connected with your heart, connected with your joy, connected with something that you truly desire, that's going to allow you to express that energy of joy more so in your day-to-day life and experience. And so that could be a part of it, but there's some ambivalence and some confusion there. So wait for it to settle if you can. The energy of the full moon's happening in your 12th house. This is you going in like reclusive mode, in hermit mode this weekend. I know for me, that's probably going to be the case because I've been working so hard on enrollment for that, for the Cosmic Academy of Astrology. And I'm ready to take a little break. But, it's kind of like hermit mode for a lot of people this weekend, where if you're a Scorpio rising, you've been busy. You've had a lot of 6th house energy. You've been putting out the fires. You've been healing through awkwardness or vulnerability around your work, around your day-to-day work routines, around your health and the way that's connected to the stress levels, or, the potential for burnout from your work. And it's kind of like, I'm going to pull back from this. And this is a great weekend for you to just spend time in solitude, seclusion, isolation. It's not a very outgoing or social new or full moon for Scorpios, it's more about doing the inner work. It's more about grounding yourself, getting back to your roots. It's more about meditation and contemplation this weekend. And that's going to really help you to see things much more clearly and to navigate much more effectively when it comes to your health, your work, and your daily routines moving forward. For Sagittarius and for Sagittarius rising. So for Sagittarius, this energy of this square is happening in your fourth and in your seventh house. And so there's some sort of urgency that you feel around a contract, an agreement, a negotiation involving your home, your family, your property, or involving your significant other in some way, or involving your family in some way. And there's some sort of conflict around this. And so, yes, it's fated. Yes, you need to move into a new direction in partnership or in collaboration with somebody else this week. But all of the pieces of the puzzle aren't there. There's fogginess, there's confusion. You don't need to make the move right this second. Gather information. But if you're feeling ambivalence, if you're feeling a sense of lack of clarity, you don't have to sign on the dotted line. You don't have to do all the things this week. You can kind of move into that a little bit more so next week or after this energy kind of starts to dissipate. But the full moon is happening in your 11th house. This is a very social full moon. This is a great energy for connecting with other people. It'll help you to find your joy. It'll help you to do the things that you love to do a little bit more so and a little bit more effectively. And so this is a great week for getting out there and socializing and connecting with people on a group level or communicating with people on a group level. It's going to have a lot of long-term benefits. And yeah, that's what's going on for Sagittarius. For Capricorn and for Capricorn rising. So for Capricorns, this energy is happening with the square in your sixth and in your third house. And so there could be conflicts, disagreements, disputes, arguments, a lot of chaotic energy around communication through your work or through sort of daily communications with people that you interact with on a day-to-day level. But usually when I see this come up, it's almost always some sort of conflict or a lot of disputes, or you're having like a lot of really intense conversations with people, especially when it comes to your work and your coworkers and things like that. There could be gossip in the workplace. Don't engage with that. Or there could be something that comes up due to your own faults or your own spreading of misinformation, be it intentional or not. It could just be that you were confused and gave the wrong numbers or facts or figures. So triple and quadruple check everything, but this is likely to be something that already happened. So when it does come up, just know that it's going to take some time to sort through that confusion if that is the case. This energy of the full moon is happening in your 10th house of career and public standing. And so whatever it is that you're dealing with career-wise, arguments, disputes, misinformation, or this need to jump into something but not having clarity or decisiveness around it, it's going to clear up this weekend in particular, and you're going to be pulled out of focusing on family drama and maybe ancestral healing or doing things involving your home, your property, things of that nature. There's like some sort of awkwardness there or shame or guilt or vulnerability around family that you've been dealing with. You're going to kind of pull yourself out of that because you need to be focusing more on your career beginning this weekend and especially on Sunday and into Monday of next week. And that's actually going to be very beneficial. A lot of the conflict that happened earlier this week will be resolved at the start of next week, and there will be actually the potential for you to have some really significant financial gains as a result of all of this, long-term financial gains. Aquarius and Aquarius rising. So this square between Mercury and Mars is happening in your fifth and in your second house. Confusion around money. Sometimes when I see something like this, it's like you get a bill and it's like, what is this? Where did this come from? Where am I going to get the money to pay this? How did this even get here, right? It's kind of like confusion around, I've seen people have this come up and it's like a confusion around like an automatic payment and they take out way too much or it gets paid twice, or there's confusion around something involving finances where a mistake was made or there's going to be an argument or a dispute or some sort of issue around finances. This is not a good week to make a major purchase, but this is a good week to engage in something new that you are deeply and truly passionate about. So use that energy. The other thing that's going on is the full moon, which is happening in your ninth and in your third house. And so you've been focusing more on day-to-day communication, on smaller, on the details of the bigger picture of what it is that you want to create for yourself, what it is that you want to learn and engage with, what it is that brings you joy, what it is that's in alignment with your integrity, what it is that you're building for yourself and your identity moving forward. And so you've been focusing on the nitty-gritty. Now is the time to kind of refocus and get back into that bigger picture. There could be travel plans or a new exploration or adventure that comes up for you that benefits you in the long term this week. There could be the need to teach something or share information on a broader scale that comes up for you this week. There could be a trip that gives you a newfound sense of perspective on your life that changes your trajectory, that changes who you are out in the world that comes up this week. This is a really great energy for you to initiate anything that is in alignment with your integrity. Okay. And then for Pisces and for Pisces rising. So for Pisces, this energy is happening in your first and in your fourth house. And so this is a really great energy for kind of, well, first off, it's a confusing energy. It'll be a great energy later on. But right now it's kind of a confusing energy around something that you want to take, something that you want to jump into or initiate involving a home or property related project or a family type of endeavor or pursuit. This could also indicate conflict, misinformation, gossip, lies, deception being sort of thrown around in the family sphere. And so don't get involved in that if that is the case. But this could also just be that you misspoke and that causes some sort of conflict in the home, or that somebody else shared misinformation but not intentionally. And so there's confusion around information involving your family or your home or your roommates or your housemates that could cause conflict. And just know that you're not seeing maybe the whole picture, or there's so many sides to the story right now that it's hard to get clarity. And so next week you'll get more clarity on that if you kind of sit with it and don't just like attack right away. But what is really nice is, so you've been kind of really honing in on your financial situation and feeling some sort of shame, guilt, vulnerability around your finances. And now's a time where you get to kind of pull yourself out of that and look at not just your finances, but your assets, your investments, your ability to take out maybe a loan or get assistance from an outside source if you are struggling financially. This could be something that culminates involving a joint partnership in finance or in marriage, that maybe your partner gets more resources and that funnels that in and it helps. But it's basically there's something going on the opposite end that gives you a sense of perspective and helps you to heal or to deal with whatever financial issues have been coming up that have been demanding your attention, if that is the case. The other thing too is that this is a really great weekend for you to just kind of take a step back, spend time in contemplation. Don't put yourself out there too much. This is a really great weekend for healing on a psychological level, engaging in some sort of therapeutic process or doing something behind the scenes to ground yourself, to connect with your ancestry or your lineage, to do some sort of inner spiritual work, or to engage in some sort of spiritual discipline that can result in some sort of internal healing. And so that would be the better thing for you to do this week, as opposed to, especially this weekend, as opposed to like going out and socializing or something along those lines, if that's even available to you. So that's my forecast for all 12 signs. And I just want to mention next week's energy. It's kind of like a carrying over of this energy. So we have the Sun conjunct Chiron exact and Mercury conjunct Neptune exact at the start of the week. And so next week we'll be feeling a lot of this same energy, especially because that full moon's culminating on Sunday. And so we'll have a couple of days of that full moon energy impacting us following that time period. And then Mercury is going to move into Aries. And that's actually a good thing for the most part, because Mercury in Pisces, it's a little complicated. It's in its detriment. We talked about that last week, but it's also squaring the nodes and squaring Mars right now, which makes it very volatile and very confusing. And so Mercury moving into Aries makes communication more direct. It's like the opposite of Pisces. It's like very clear and very direct, almost to a fault. And so that will be part of the energy next week that we'll talk about. But a lot of the energy at the beginning of next week will be similar to what we're discussing now, except a little bit more amplified in one way or another. And so we'll talk about that in next week's forecast on Saturday. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, share this information or this video with your friends if you feel like they can benefit from what we just talked about, and I will see you next week. Bye, everyone.